Hi, and welcome to the Million Dollar Speaker Podcast. Hi, I'm Arvee Robinson. I'm the Master Speaker Trainer, International Speaker, and author of Speak Up, Get Clients, which is now on Audible. Yes. And I am your host today for the Million Dollar Speaker Podcast. And now this is a different podcast than other podcasts because this is a podcast where you're going to learn how to become a $1 million speaker. That's right. The characteristics of a $1 million speaker, which is what I ask every guest that I have on, and how to reach millions of people, which is what we want to do with our influence, and how to make money doing it. Right? How to make those millions. Because again, if you want to make 6, 7 figures, all you have to do is get in front of more people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So with me is a very special guest of mine and a client of mine. But she does something so different that I had to bring her on to the stage. So my guest today is Bernadette Wilson. She's an MBA, a certified NeuroCoach, master mindfulness trainer, author, and president and co-founder of IAEN, which is the International Association of Evidence-Based Coaches, a brand new organization. She brings her clients more than 25 years of business experience working with Fortune 500 firms to entrepreneurial enterprises in the high-tech, healthcare, advertising, marketing, and in the not-for-profit environment. Bernadette is a gifted coach who specializes in professional and personal empowerment, trauma recovery, and the neurological well-being of her clients. Working one-on-one in a group setting, she integrates neural coaching and her 20 plus years of corporate business leadership experience to quickly get to the heart of the matter for an effective, lasting change. Bernadette is passionate about sharing her insights as an international writer and speaker and finds joy and balance in her long life practice of yoga and meditation. So Bernadette is here today to share with us, and let me get ready to bring her on stage. She is here today to share with us how you can use your brain to speak with clarity and confidence. So help me welcome Bernadette Wilson.
Hey, Arvee.
Hey, Bernadette, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So the first question I always like to ask my guests is, what do you think, as a speaker yourself, as an author yourself, what do you think the characteristics are of a $1 million speaker?
That is a great question because there's a lot of speakers out there or people that want to be speakers.
Right.
A $1 million speaker actually really knows that their talk will benefit their audience. They know within that they're offering their true thoughts or purpose, and they're there to educate and teach someone. They may be there to persuade, just give out a message, but it really comes from an inner knowingness that we're there for a purpose.
That's beautiful. Well said, Bernadette. Well said. So let's talk a little bit about you. So why don't you tell us, I mean, of course, everyone just met you with your bio and everything, but let's hear it from you. So how did you become this neuro coach that you are today?
I just love how you say that. Well, it's a rather new field. I've actually been in it about 10 years. I was running a marketing department, and I really found that I love to help people. And I opened up a wellness center and then moved to Orange County with my husband. And at that time, I started really looking at what I really love to do. And again, it goes back to helping people. And I became a student of the brain and really learned about how, if we could understand our brain, it can enhance our lives dramatically, and became certified in neurocoaching. And then I've always been a student of yoga or meditation. And so I got double certified in mindfulness teaching. But there was a point in my life where it really kind of flipped for me and turned for me. And if you'd like, I could go ahead and tell you a little bit about my story.
So what changed for you? Yes.
Oh, so it happened about 15 years ago. So each one of us has some type of event or trauma in our life that really changes the way we see the world. I had an upbringing that was pretty disruptive, but it wasn't until about 15 years ago when I received a phone call that changed my life forever. I got a phone call that my son, who was 16 years old, took his life. And I know there are people out there listening, some of your listeners who have lost somebody dear that they love, and they know the trauma that you go through. When I took that phone call, I do remember looking up and seeing everyone's face, and there was so much compassion and love and empathy in their faces that really supported me through this horrific event. And as we all can imagine, if we're in that type of situation, there's a lot that goes on with our body and our brain. We actually shut down to survive. And in that shutting down process, we don't think, perhaps in my situation, I couldn't speak clearly.
I bet.
And even perform. I mean, it just, the tears. So getting to where it really changed my life, because there's so often we want to just not do anything when we're in a trauma state. I had a good friend, and many of you also may have good friends and coaches that help you when you really can get stuck. And he said, it's time. It's time to get some help. And I went into this office and I looked directly, can you imagine this beautiful office in the Bay Area, and this ocean breeze is blowing in, and it's this serene place. And I'm looking around like, this isn't really real. And where am I? And I walked in that office and I said, if there is no system to get me out of this, that's it. I was in so much pain. And if you ever had somebody look at you with deep compassion, their soft eyes, and they look at you, and she told me, she said, there is a way out. There is a system. And of course I was like, okay, lay it on me. What do you have?
What is it?
And it was, she started working with me with cognitive behavioral therapy and really invested time in learning about who I am. She was such a great mentor and such a great instructor. The other thing that was really incredible is that at the same time I was earning my master's, I was doing salsa dancing. So these are two things that you can do for your brain to really ignite it, is exercise and always learn. So without knowing it, I was doing that. And then to move it forward a little faster in my life, of course, I really learned the enormous aspect of big love and what it means to have a purpose beyond yourself. So I go into businesses now and I work with individuals one-on-one, and I teach them brain basics, how to master and use their brain. And also that I believe that each one of us, when we show up to work, we may be taking care of an elderly parent, we may have to deal with our teenage child, but we're bringing kind of some baggage into work when we come in there. So to really know that, I believe that we do not have to live with these big traumas in our life for a long period. And there is a faster, more efficient way to move through this so we can have more joy and success in our life. And that's really learning how to use our brain better.
Beautiful, beautiful. And again, so sorry the tragedy
Thank you.
happened to you and your family, but it's through that tragedy that you're doing what you're doing today. And not only, with the brain, but you also are a traumatic coach. What do you call that? People that have trauma, a trauma coach, as well as a NeuroCoach, right?
Yeah. Yes, it comes up because, like I said earlier, we all have something. So when you're working with somebody one-on-one, that often will arise. And so I will teach them techniques. So our brain, when we have a memory, our brain does not know the difference between the memory and reality.
Right.
So we often ruminate and we go over it and over and over again. So I have these processes through this neurocoaching and my company Cognitive Performance where we actually overlay it. I call it overlaying. It's the easiest way to understand it. And so you're coming away with viewing that memory in a different way. Just like me, I'll never, the loss of my child is of course devastating. But when I view it now, there are moments when I get sad, of course, I'm human. But I now look at it, it is my purpose. It is the big love that I come forward with because I do not want any child or person to suffer like I did. So there's a different vantage point that I come at when I reach people and touch them and bring my trainings.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it sounds like your work will save lives. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what we're here to talk about today, which is speaking with clarity and actually using the brain. So how can people listening, which are speakers who want to become $1 million speaker, reach millions and make millions? You have some tips, brain tips for us that we can use immediately to make that happen. So let's start with just, getting that clarity and, as a speaker, clarity on our message, whatever it might be, and just, share with us a little bit of insights on how we can get clear and get our message out there.
Okay, great. Number one, I was just doing it right now while you were speaking, Arvee, was becoming more grounded, more centered. Okay. While I was listening to you, I was actually breathing in and exhaling and breathing in and exhaling. Okay. So we have opportunities before our speech, even when we're presenting, and there may be a little pause in what we have to say. We can take what we call mini mindful breaks. And what this does is it reduces the stress and anxiety that may be going on within our body. And with our breath, we're inhaling and exhaling. And when you do this, you're not really thinking about anything else. You're coming very, very present. And again, this will allow you to connect with your audience and be there for them, and your speech can naturally flow.
Beautiful. So that's one exercise that we can do just to get clear and just clear our head as a speaker, reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress, is breathe. Right?
Yes, yes.
Mini and breathe. I mean, that is $1 million idea right there. What is another one?
The other one, and I'm sure you preach this all the time, I believe you do, and that is practicing. So the brain loves habits, and we will actually be more motivated by something that is negative. I hate to say that, but positive, is that true? Right?
It's true, right?
It is true. Yeah.
We'll do anything to avoid pain.
That's right. So if there is, like, if we know that this speech, if we think in our head that, if I mess up, this is so crucial. And if I don't come out on stage and do it perfect, then I better practice, practice, practice. I bet you will be more motivated to practice, right? Because
Amen.
there's like,
Absolutely.
so how can you turn that around is by instilling brain-based habits where you actually may have a chart with like the days and the hours and the time that you want to practice. And then when you're practicing, focus on being more confident, really learning what you want to say. And again, finding that value that it's going to bring to somebody else. And what will happen, you're actually going to kind of flip that. Instead of being more motivated by the negative at the beginning, you may be more motivated by the negative. By the time you're ready to get on stage and be that $1 million speaker, you're there for the audience. You're not
Right.
there for yourself.
That's right. You're
Because
so
you,
well rehearsed and practiced that you can't wait to share
yeah,
the message.
absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. So again, I totally agree with practice. I teach my students to practice 1 hour for every 2 minutes of speech. So that means 15 hours in a 30-minute talk. That's how you become good. That's how you become $1 million speaker. And you practice so much, you push through the practicing. So it doesn't sound rehearsed. And it's probably, and I didn't know this, but because the brain likes habit and the brain's got it. It's like that song that all of a sudden you sing after hearing it on the radio in your car for so long, you just start singing it. So that's exactly what you want your speech to do. Just be automatic so that you can be present. I know it might sound a little weird, but have it be so automatic that the brain knows what to do so that you can do whatever you need to do in front of your audience, or if something happens, you could do it and it won't skip a beat. You won't have deer in the headlights look, that kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your mindfulness training. You mentioned mindfulness a couple of times.
Yes.
And I've heard it before, but you are not just first degree, you're like a second degree or second tier.
Right.
You've
Right.
gone through it a couple of times, the program, you've gone through a deeper program than just one segment of it. So tell us a little bit about that and give us one tip today that we can use to be either more mindful or to get that mind more full. Oh, that's good.
Great. Well, I have to give credit to someone that I studied under for quite some a while, and his name is Shinjing Yang. And a phenomenal speaker. He's also a philosopher and an incredible person. I've had the opportunity to see him speak a couple times, and you can find him online if you wanted to learn more about meditation and mindfulness. And in his philosophy, he believes that we can come to a state of equanimity, which is a state of calmness. And I actually was listening to a lot of his tapes before my son passed, and it really helped me through my process as well, and becoming more mindful and more grounded, and really understanding a little bit more about that process, the grief process. So what I learned is this unified mindful way of teaching meditation, that you can do meditation any place, almost any time, and you can do longer sits if you'd like. And there's a lot of different techniques instead of, when sometimes we think of it, we just got our eyes shut and we just have to let thoughts go. And how in the heck do you do that?
Right.
One of the greatest techniques is what we call hear out. And I often give this to clients who have a lot of anxiety. So yeah, you'll love this, Arvee. So what you do is you shut your eyes and you just get grounded in your chair. And then when you do so, listen just to all the sounds you hear with your right ear. And do that for a moment or two. And it's amazing what you'll hear and the calmness that comes over you. And then do the same thing with your left ear for about 2 minutes. And then do it with both ears. And then what you do is you'll notice that there'll be a sense of calmness that comes over you. You can even do this technique, let's say if you're in a business meeting and there's a lot of activity and a lot's going on, or you're getting ready to present. If you just take a moment And just, you don't have to necessarily shut your eyes. You can train yourself to do this with your eyes open and just start listening with your other ear, and your left ear and your right ear. And this is called hear out, is what it's called. And it grounds you and it centers you. So that is just a technique that I use often, and I also prescribe it often.
Wow. And it sounds easy. Anybody can do that. You just have to get to a quiet place where you can really hear.
Yes.
Interesting. Right. So let's talk about some of the brain, because I know you know the brain inside and out. So I know there's different parts of the brain. So do you want to touch on them really quickly?
Well, what I'd like to really talk about is the part, our prefrontal cortex and our cognition and how we think, because their brain, there's a lot to know about the brain. And it's like one of our newest frontiers, and neuroscientists still don't know everything about our brain. With technology in the last 10 years or so, all of the studies that are coming out, there's a lot of mindfulness studies and a lot of studies of how to use the brain and about the brain because of the new technology. Even old studies are becoming void because of the new technology.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really cool. It's really fascinating. So what I always like to focus on is to really, if you really think about this area up here, because so many people that gets in the way.
Forehead.
Yes, your prefrontal cortex area here.
Okay.
And this is responsible for our reasoning and our logic and our thinking. So often when we get stuck, let's say if we're going to go up and do a presentation, and this area, we may be getting some negative thoughts, or some people get stuck in rumination. This is one area of the brain that the techniques that I just showed you, like hear out, actually calms this area. And there's tests there's studies that show that the blood of the brain actually is moving away from that area. So when it's active, our prefrontal cortex, there's a lot more blood concentration there. That's why they know it's lighting up. So we know this is why we're concentrating. This is in charge of our thoughts. So again, if you can consciously thinking, gosh, I've got this ruminating thought that's going over that, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this project. I don't have any help today. This day is just really hard. Oh my gosh, I don't feel so good. We're really stimulating a lot more of those stress hormones in our body. So what we need to do is think, okay, these are just thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my reality. There may be a situation here that I can handle better. I can be a better performer. I am going to be able to produce this presentation that I need to do, and just really calm down. And if we focus once you identify the physical location of your brain, sometimes it's easier for people to understand versus just thinking this is some big void mess that's going on and they can't control it. Right. Does that help?
That helps, but let's talk about this. What about fear? Some people are really fearful of speaking. What part of the brain triggers that fear? Because most of the time it is unfounded at all, And so what part is triggered, and how do people calm them down? I mean, I say calm down through training. Once you learn how to do public speaking and then you practice and become more confident, that's what calms it down. But if someone was just to look at the brain, because it's not just public speaking, there's other things, afraid of heights, afraid of relationships, afraid of, socialization, whatever. I mean, what part is that, and what can they do?
Okay, great. We talked a little bit about the fear early on in this podcast, but our fear is a primal instinct. So we have that to protect ourselves. And it's also connected to our memories, our culture, and our upbringing. So if we have had some type of, maybe we were shamed when we were younger, if we stood up and asked for something. Right. So there's some type of memory that may be there that's kind of hold us back, like, oh, I'm too shy. Oh, I can't ask for that. I can't stand in front of people. Versus some children may have been rewarded and they've danced around the rooms and they light up the rooms and everybody loves them. Right. So they've got really a positive feedback. And those are the ones that, your actresses and whatnot up on the stage. So they really get a positive feedback. So what's going on is we perceive, our eyes may see something that is fearful, and we have recorded it into our memory banks. And so
Got
when you tell me, okay, Bernadette, you have to go up in front of 1,000 people. I mean, for me, I'm not too scared about that, but I may be apprehensive at the beginning. So I have to go through, and I may have a memory that comes up and go, oh my gosh, I remember that one time I did a speech and I stumbled all over and people laughed at
or
me.
I forgot what I was going to say, and
Yes, all the things that
all
happen.
those bad memories come up. Right.
So again, going back to our prefrontal cortex, those are just thoughts. It's not our reality. And what you just said was perfect earlier. It's with practice, making those habits, making those strong neural connections and emotional backing that really tells you that, you know what, I have something to offer here. I can say it with fluency. I can communicate to people. I really care about people. I want them to know my message. And I may make a mistake, but I think they'll still understand what I have to say. So I've right now, just by saying that, I've lowered my stress level. I've lowered my anxiety level, and I will have more confidence and show up with more confidence to speak.
And just the way you say it too, your voice is so calming, right? So voice is important too if people are going to talk to themselves and calm themselves. So, one of the things in my book I always share is, the acronym for fear, is a lot of people, in the old days said false evidence appearing real, but my definition is false expectations altering reality. So false expectations altering reality, because that's, you go in with that thought, that's an expectation. You're going to lose, your place. You're going to forget what you're going to say. People are going to be staring at you. You're going to be nervous. Your knees are going to be shaking. So then you stop it and you don't do it at all. Right. So what is it? It altered the reality of what you could have enjoyed, which is helping more people with your words. So any fear can really change and alter reality because of your own expectations. So again, those are those thoughts. So excellent. Great. There's so much that you have to share. Tell us a little bit about how you work with people. If somebody hears this podcast and says, you know what, I need to know more because we only have such a short amount of time here. How would they reach out to you? How would they work with you? How do you work individually? And then how would they get a hold of you?
Oh, great. Thank you. And I love what you just said about fear. I mean, that was just fantastic, Arvee. I love that. So how I work with individuals via Zoom. I also have like a 6-week program that they can get involved with. I have an online program that's going to be coming out very, very soon so they can learn some more brain basics. And then I also go into businesses and work with teams, sales teams, business teams, executives, and really give them some real foundations and some communication skills that are all brain based to help enhance their working environment. You can either get a hold of me by my email, which is Bernadette at cognitive-performance.com. My website is cognitive-performance.com. And I'm also on Instagram. So please follow me. I love being on Instagram because what I do there is I post a lot of tips and techniques right there on Instagram. And so you can just get free information, and that's at cognitive-performance.com.
Okay. So your free giveaway is where?
Oh, the free giveaway is I believe that you can go onto my website and get that. And I provided a link. I can give you that link as well. And it's a goal setting guidebook. And you can get that on Instagram right away as well. And you just put in your email address and you download it through your email. And it will help you kind of set some goals, set some public speaking goals, and really refine where you want to come from when you're speaking.
Very nice. Very nice. So we have to end today, but what are your last thoughts, your last words, your last brilliance that you would like to share with the audience before we end our show today?
Well, just that every single one of us can really enhance our brain knowledge. And then with that, you'll have a state of clarity that really will enhance your success and joy and relationships.
Nice. Very well said. All right. Thank you so much, Bernadette, for
You're
being on
welcome.
the show today. I mean, we just barely scratched the surface. So we're going to have you back where we're going to get deep dive into some of these exercises and techniques on how we can just enhance our brain and get it to work even better. So thank you once again. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you back here again next week. Bye for now.